Have you ever been in a situation where you have read a lot, but by the end of the day, you think that you know a lot of things, but you don't know who said what? You don't have the right references. You cannot really put that on a paper. Well, if that's you, then today's video is definitely for you, because in today's video, I'm going to give you 7 useful tips, which is going to help you to write a good literature review if you're an undergraduate student, master's student, or even a PhD candidate. Stay tuned to watch this video. Hello everybody, this is Dr. Samreen and I'm a full-time academic in the UK, and I'm making videos on productivity, how to work smart, and also I'm trying to help students in their academic life. Now, this video is basically about conducting a good literature review, and to be honest, I have experienced all the problems, based on which I've come up with these very useful tips, and I really hope this would be useful for you as well. My first tip for you to write a good literature review is to organize. Yes, organize, organize, and organize. What happens many times, well, what happened with me, in fact, was that I started conducting my research, or perhaps writing my dissertation, and I found myself in a situation where I was reading a lot, yet I wasn't taking enough notes, and I wasn't really keeping all the references intact. So at the end of the day, I would have a lot of knowledge, I won't know who said what. And I learned that I need to organize my literature. So first tip for you is to organize your literature. Have your folders, subfolders, and make sure each folder reflects the name of that theme which you have been exploring. For example, my work was on consumer multiple identities in relation to the bank choice, right? So my one folder was about consumer identities, one was about bank choice, one was about factors which may impact identity. So by doing that, I had a clear idea that which folder would contain what kind of articles, and therefore if I would like to have a quick look at an article about identity, I would just open that folder, and it would really make my life easy. My second tip is also about organization, but this time I want to tell you about how you can save an article. So for example, if you're reading an article, let's say you're reading one of my articles, I'm not plugging in here, but just as an example, if you have read one of my articles and it says Ashraf 2021 with my last name, when you read the article and when you save it, save with my last name and the year. Because what would happen when you would save that article with author's last name and the year of publication, you're also preparing or creating your own repository of all the articles. So you won't really save it like 9234 or XYZ, because you won't really know which article is it. And so if you have saved that article with the author name and the year of publication, it can really help you to access it more easily. A third tip, which I love the most, and I've shared this with many people who have found it useful as well. And in fact, this was shared with me by one of my tutors during my studies, is that create a table of your literature review. This table would help you in organization of your literature, and it would also work as a kind of a system or repository of all your literature. So what you can include in that table. You can have a column about topic of the article. You can then have a column about year of publication. You can then have a column about which journal it's published in. If it's not important for you, you don't have to include it. The fourth column could be about the key themes in the literature this article discussed. Number 5 could be the methods they chose. 6, what did they find? And 7 could be about what are the future implications or future research ideas they're giving you. And then you can add one column about the conclusion. Now, this table is pretty flexible. You can add, delete any columns as per your own choice, but you can add all the columns which you would like to have the information about, quick information. But let's say if you've read 10 articles, and if you populate this table with all those 10 articles, it's very easy for you to write about them when you're writing a literature review, and especially your discussion. Because don't forget that in discussion chapter, you are discussing your findings in relation to your literature review, right? So you need to have a good system where you can easily access all the literature you have presented in this chapter of literature review, so that you can easily link, compare, and contrast your findings with the literature. And so this table can become extremely handy if you want to have a quick look at all the information you have presented in your literature review chapter. So my fourth tip is basically about efficient reading of an article. So when we read a research article, every article would include a section on future implications or future directions or new directions, or sometimes in the conclusion section, they would include what they have done and what people should do based on their work. Now, if you look at that section, that really helps you to identify, this is what these people have done, this author has done this work, but this is what they're suggesting to do others in the future. And when you read that, that can give you a really good idea about also creating your research questions or objectives, because if you can find what people have not done before, one, it can easily help you to find a research gap. And secondly, you can fill that research gap through your study, and that's a big win, because ultimately research is all about conducting a good study where you're adding to the existing knowledge. And therefore, it's an easy way to find a research gap. But don't rely on it completely. Make sure that reading is absolutely up to date with time, because you shouldn't read an article from, let's say, 1990s and then try to fill that research gap. The article through which you can find the research gap should be the most relevant in your field. My next tip is when you read an article, and for example, if they have referred to another study, always go back to that study. And by doing that, you can find relevant articles, because one of the worries which I also had while I was conducting my literature review was that, what if I skip any of the keywords? So that was my biggest worry. And so when you read an article, go to the reference list and see what are the key authors in that field, and therefore you can track it back to studies which are key or more significant in your field. My next tip is to use Reference Manager. I cannot focus enough on that. Use an EndNote or Mendeley or any other reference manager, because it really makes your life easy. Imagine if you have to reference all your articles manually. Now, there are so many different referencing styles out there, and the difference, to be honest, is sometimes very little. It's just about 1 comma, 1 full stop, or 1 parenthesis. But if you use a reference manager, it can really be more efficient, save you more time, and you can do a good job out of it as well. I really hope that you found this video useful, and if you did, then don't forget to share this with your friends who might be in similar situations as you. Thank you very much for watching this video. I really appreciate your support. Stay tuned for my next video. Take care until then. Bye.